2015 continuation hearing of the Lucas County Zoning Board of Appeals review of Lucas County zoning case issue 714, Pleasant Ridge Energy LLC, Pleasant Ridge Wind Energy Project. Michael Cornell. Here. John Wilson. Here. Richard Keeper. Diana Iverson. Howard Zimmerman. John Houston. She'll be coming late. And she's coming. Liz Nielsen.
Whoever tries to watch that is recording.
All right, take this opportunity to welcome everybody here tonight. It's like our crowd's a little bit smaller than usual. Everybody's taking advantage of the nice weather. So, a few things we need to take care of. First thing, we've got some exhibits that we need to work on. Most important thing that I want to put out there this evening, and this is very important for everyone. It has come to the time within this hearing process that we need to obviously look at finishing up the process. Having said that, we are going to have March the 25th, that's next week, our hearing next week. It's going to be the final evening for interested parties to sign up. Okay, that doesn't mean you have to testify. You won't testify at that point, but you need to be on the list. So you must, and we're not going back on this. You must sign up by March the 25th meeting, and we will still be available. You still will be available to sign up on March the 25th. But after that hearing, you will not be allowed to sign up. The same goes for both councils. I want to tell you guys, it's going to be your final opportunity to disclose who you may present as witnesses. So if they're not disclosed by that point, they will not be allowed. All right? We'll go ahead and get our exhibits taken into evidence, and we'll go ahead and proceed. All right, this looks like Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 6A. This is a legend from a setback map. Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 226. It's Illinois Administrative Code 901.102. We did not accept that as an exhibit. Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 280 is the Environmental Review Tribunal, case number 13-102 to 13-104. We did not accept that as an exhibit. Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 285, another Environmental Review Tribunal, case number 13-070 to 13-075. We did not accept that as an exhibit. Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 287, Environmental Review Tribunal, case number 13-096. We did not accept that as an exhibit. Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 288, Environmental Review Tribunal, case number 10-121/10-122. We did not accept that as an exhibit. Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 290, the legal proceeding, a hearing August 27 and 28 of 2012 by Meridian Energy Limited, seen in front of Judge M. Harlan. We did not accept this as an exhibit. Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 293, Queens Bench for Saskatchewan, dated 10/7/2010. We did not accept this as an exhibit.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a quick question. The ones that you just listed that weren't accepted, I assume those aren't being accepted because the witness I asked about those, which was Mr. Punch, wasn't familiar with them and couldn't authenticate them. I assume I'm not foreclosed from bringing in another witness later who can authenticate them. Because technically I didn't even offer them because he wasn't familiar with them.
All right, we'll reserve the opportunity on that, but with the reminder that the rebuttal side of the hearing process is not an attempt to introduce more evidence.
I understand.
All right. Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 295, methods and criteria for night noise guidelines for Europe. We accepted. The county accepts Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 299, hearings before the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, docket number 6630-CE-302. County accepts Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 318 as the adverse health effects of industrial wind turbines written by Jerry Punch, Richard James. County accepts Donald Harms Exhibit 1 dated 2/18/15 as a 3-page document, 2-page document with some financial statistics. County accepts Brad Steininger Exhibit 1, the impact of wind farm development on residential property in Livingston County, Illinois. The county accepts Hayes Exhibit 1, the result of an acoustic testing program, Cape Bridgewater Wind Farm, dated November 26, 2014. County accepts Hayes Exhibit number 2 as the reviews of acoustic testing program at Cape Bridgewater Wind Farm.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I'm going to object to both of those. Mr. Hayes didn't evidence any, I'm sorry, never mind. He was questioning Mr. Punch, I apologize.
County accepts Hayes Exhibit number 3 as further comments on the Cape Bridgewater Wind Farm study, muddying the waters. The Cooper report on the Cape Bridgewater Wind Farm is well documented and states exactly what it does, by Paul Schomer. County accepts Hayes Exhibit number 4, investigation of the acoustic impact of Pacific Hydro's wind turbines at Cape Bridgewater, Victoria, Australia. Participant resident statement, 21st January 2015. All right, that's all the witnesses, or all the exhibits, I'm sorry. Rough night tonight. All right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening with Suzanne Bell. Suzanne Bell available in the audience this evening? Good evening, Ms. Bell. I'd like to swear or affirm you. All right. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this case now and here shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right. Can you please state your name and address for our court reporter, and you may proceed.
My name is Suzanne Bell, and I live at 15209 North 200 Avenue, Altona, Illinois, which is in Henry County. And what else, sir?
Go ahead
Oh,
with your statement.
okay. We have one turbine on our farm, and we have within our house, our turbine is a 1/4 of a mile from our house, and we have 2 that are 1/2 a mile from our house, and 5 of them that are 3/4 of a mile from our house. And at this point, we hardly ever hear them unless we're outside and the wind is real strong. We might hear a swoosh, but never anything loud. And they do not bother us. We have Invenergy has their building that they keep all of their equipment and things with about, 2.5 to 3 miles from us. And one day last fall, I got a telephone call and they said it was from Invenergy. And I said, well, yes, what can I help you with? And the gentleman said, we've been up to your turbine with what are they called? They take up there and pick up stuff with, the big machine. I can't even think of the name. Crane, there you go, thank you. Anyway, he said we had to come up to your turbine and repair. We had to bring in a turbine, or a crane. And we made some damage in your crop that we hadn't picked yet. And he said, I want you to have Dwayne go up and check and see if we do need to have a claim made for damage to your property. So they are very good that way. We're real happy to have our turbine. There's a lot of them around us. Is there anything else, any questions you would have?
We'll go and ask some other individuals, maybe they have some questions. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, I just wanted to, we're
Okay.
very happy to have them around.
Okay, all right.
And they don't bother us.
All right. Do we have any questions in this? All right, any units of local government or school districts here this evening have any questions for Ms. Bell? All right. Mr. Blaze or Mr. Lukian, do you guys have anything for?
Just a couple of quick questions, ma'am. The project, it's an Invenergy project?
Yes.
Is that,
Yes.
Is that the Bishop Hill project?
Yes, it is.
How long has the turbines been there?
I think ours has been, we were one of the last ones to have them built in that area. I think it's been there about 3 years.
And has Invenergy ever told you that you shouldn't contact them or complain if you have any issues?
No.
Okay. That's all I have, sir.
All right, Mr. Lukian, do you have anything?
Ms. Bell, thanks for coming. Did someone contact you and tell you about this hearing?
Yeah.
Who contacted you?
Our Invenergy guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
All right, are there any other interested parties in the audience this evening with questions for Ms. Bell?
I don't need to say anything.
Just state your name for us.
Go ahead.
I'm Sharon Shaw, Forest, Illinois.
I'm sorry, say again?
Sharon Shaw, Forest, Illinois.
If you could hold the microphone closer, so
Okay.
a lot of pressure.
My question for you is how close? We're in a very populated area where there's going to be 136 turbines, and you're talking about one. They're awfully close to your house. I'm surprised at your thoughts. But I saw you months ago. I should have asked you all this.
A fourth of a mile, but there is, I'm not sure how many there are total, because they go down Route 17, and they go into Galva, partly. So and then they go north of us quite a ways. I would say there must be, is there 100 there or more? Yeah, there's more than 100 in that area.
And how many towns besides Galva? How many towns are near there?
Bishop Hill.
Right? And how close are they to Bishop Hill? What's the
They're with, I think, 2.5 miles.
They're set back at 2.5 miles.
I think that was what they said, that the residents of Bishop Hill requested that they be that far away from them.
And then you're from Gallup, I know that.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
She's trying to,
Maybe turn it up like this.
Oh,
There you go.
there we go.
Okay. I know you're from Gallup. What's the setback from Gallup? Do you have any idea?
From Galva, they're set back further. The closest ones would be south of Galva, right on 17. They're probably, I don't think they're a mile, but they're maybe half mile, 3/4 of a mile from town.
Now, how big is Gallup?
Galva's about 2,800 people.
Okay, and how big is Bishop Hill?
Oh, about 300.
Okay, what other towns are nearby?
There's none, except Woodhull, and that's quite a ways away.
Okay, now, I've seen these same ones you're talking about by Geneseo. Is that the same group?
No.
No. Are there fewer by Geneseo?
Oh, yeah, there's only 2 or 3 over there. They use them for their own purposes. Mhm.
And those aren't by the town because they're on the other side of the interstate.
Yeah.
So, the closest that you're talking about then would be pretty far away from populated areas. That's kind of what I want to know, and thank you so much.
Okay.
Anybody else in the audience with questions? Anybody else? All right. County staff, do you have any questions? Any other? All right. Ms. Bell, thank you for coming. Have a good evening. All right. Next on the list, I have Hank Gallwitz. All right, Mr. Gallwitz, can I go ahead and get you sworn in? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case and here you shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self you got?
yes, sir.
All right, can you please state your name and address for our court reporter, and then go ahead whenever you're ready.
Henry Gallwitz, 1317 4th Street, Lacon, Lacon. I've been a Marshall County board member for the last 2.5 years. We had a project that was about a third of the size of this project and receives over $700,000 in tax revenue from it. These dollars have helped the following projects to receive grants and move forward with the additional revenue. New firehouse in town, new roof, windows, air conditioning in the middle school, renovations of the high school with new lockers, floor covering, roof repair. I work for a labor management group that's comprised of contractor association and local unions working together to bring jobs in the area, put local people and contractors to work. This project gives this county the opportunity to bring $1 to $2 million to its treasury for a number of years. It also encourages economic development in terms of increased jobs, services, selling materials and supplies. There are also road improvements during and after completion of the project that could be over $1 million in value. The road commissioners could verify the amount for you. The economic development benefits could be $1 to $2 million for the county. The average worker's salary, 70 to 80 hours a week, could be between $40,000 and $50,000. The workers on similar projects have been over 200 employees with a peak of 400. These people would be buying meals, gasoline, and other supplies while working on the project. This committee could also check with the other projects that you guys have had before in the area on the benefits and the income from the last wind farm project for comparison on some of the numbers that I presented tonight. The second sheet that is in the handout that I passed around is a copy of how everything is broken down for one wind turbine from the treasurer's office. So what the fire department gets, what the school gets, that sort of thing. That's one turbine. The second page, there's 60 towers. It shows the property taxes for one payment. There are two payments. You'd have to double it. But it shows $358,064.05. So double that, and that's what the county gets per year for those towers. We never had any major problems in the area. If something got messed up, it got addressed, it got fixed. Never had any problems. The roads are in better shape than they were when it originally started. I thank you for the opportunity to present to the county board.
Very good, thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Cowell? All right, units of local government, school districts, anybody out there in the audience? All right, council on either side.
Mr. Gauss, just really quickly, and let's just limit it to, first of all, the wind farm that you're talking about, is that the Camp Grove wind farm?
Yes, sir.
How long has that wind farm been operating?
About 8 years. It was a split job between Marshall and Stark. Part of it's in Stark County, part of it's in Marshall County.
And through that 8 years, have you yourself heard of anyone complaining of any health impacts from that wind farm?
There hasn't been any problems at any type. Anything that needed to be addressed for the clay tile or the roads or anything else for maintenance, it's been addressed and been taken care of.
That's all I have.
Mr. Lupian,
Mr. Gallowitz, how close do you live to the nearest wind turbine?
They're probably 8 to 9 miles away because I live in Lincoln and they're on top of the hill, on top of the bluff.
Okay, so they're on top of the bluff. What's the largest town in Marshall?
Lincoln, which is 2,200, which is where I live.
And you said the other county was Stark or Stark?
Stark. S-T-A-R-K.
Thanks. What's the largest town in Stark?
The closest one to the wind farm is Wyoming, Illinois.
Okay, and how far is Wyoming from the wind farm?
It's probably 5-6 miles.
And how many people live in Wyoming? Approximately.
You'd be better off to cross-reference a map, maybe 1,000.
Okay, but smaller than Lacona.
Yeah, smaller than the other
And
one.
how far is it Lacon, L-A-C-O-N? Is that where you live?
That's where I live.
And that's the biggest town in Marshall, correct?
That's the biggest town in town.
Okay. And how far is Lacon from the wind farm?
You asked me that, and it's 8 to 9 miles.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was asking earlier how far your house was. So the answer is the same for both in essence.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Sparland, Illinois is across the river, which goes up to the top of the hill, and the towers are probably like 3 miles from there, from the town. There's a number of residents scattered all throughout that have, that live in the farm area.
You know what? Can Can you say that again? I think someone was making some noise, and I don't think either her or I heard it, so if you want to say that, what you were saying again at the end, I'm sorry.
Okay, there's people that live out where the turbines are throughout the town, throughout the farmland area.
Okay. And some of those people have actually leased or allowed the wind turbines to be on their land, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how big the wind turbines are at the Camp
300 feet tall.
300 feet. Thank you.
Anybody in the audience with questions for Mr. Gollins? Please state your name for us.
My name is Amber Severson. Sir, you stated that you made a specific amount of tax revenue from Marshall County with these wind turbines,
Mm-hmm.
correct? What is your tax rate in Marshall County? Do you know that?
Have them look on what I gave them.
So was it 8%, 10%?
I have no idea.
Okay. Okay. So are the wind turbines that are taxed at that percent?
They're taxed at the level that the state allows the wind turbines to be taxed at, and that's stated throughout the whole state.
Very good, thank you.
Anybody else in the audience with questions? Anybody? County staff? Do you have anything? Mr. Gollins, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Let the records indicate the county will accept the call with Exhibit 1. It's a 3-page document. Heading on the first page is Great Plains LECET. Linda Ambrose available this evening. Linda Ambrose. Can I get you sworn in? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right. Please state your name and address for our court reporter, and then you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Linda Ambrose, 19840 East 300 North Road, Fairburn. When most companies want to start up their business in an area, the city officials offer them tax breaks or other incentives to locate in their city. There are long-term legitimate benefits to these companies locating in the town. Wind companies like Invenergy are just the opposite. They come in and try to deal their way in by offering officials closed deal bribes. They appeal to small towns like Forest and Strawn, who are cash-strapped and then put a gag order on them. They put out ads with misleading terms like may or can be used to benefit local fire stations or other local entities. People interpret these misleading statements to say they will be used for these areas. The old bait and switch to mislead the public. Federal and state subsidized industrial wind complexes in actuality are flash in the pan. They flash a lot of taxpayer money up front, but end up hurting the counties and certainly the schools down the road much more than they helped in the startup process. At an Ag and Zoning meeting, Mr. Young stated that he had a letter or had talked to a superintendent from a small, already consolidated district in the eastern part of Livingston County. This superintendent hoped the county didn't make the ordinance too restrictive because he'd like some turbines in his area to keep the school alive. Whether they get turbines or not, sadly, that rural school district is doomed to have to merge with another district. That superintendent is looking for a short-time fix that will keep his school open a couple of years longer. And turbine money at the front end of a contract looks good until you start losing state funding. The people of the Prairie Central District planned for this school system to be around for longer than 20 years, and we don't need Invenergy giving false promises of stable financial help. I still believe wind turbine companies are full of false promises and statistics. But as I said to the Livingston County Board earlier, if the people, and not just the superintendent, want these turbines, put them in their area. So many people in the Pleasant Ridge area do not want them, and we ask you not to destroy our farmland. As members of these two bodies of local government, we need to be able to ask the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Livingston County Board to be overly cautious and to protect the citizens of this county. Even though you might have voted to allow a special use permit in the past, I hope you will look at this application with fresh eyes. These turbines are getting bigger, and to make more of a profit, companies are putting in larger concentrations of them in a location. Mr. Engelhardt spoke of this. In the years between when he signed his contract and the turbines were constructed, the project changed hands 4 times, and they ended up with 72 turbines instead of the 36 in the same footprint. Once you sign away the rights to your land, you have no control. At the March 3rd meeting of the Ag and Zoning Committee, we found out about a problem in Streeter of a corporation, very similar to the Pleasant Ridge LLC. The Smith Douglas Company abandoned the fertilizer plant in the 1980s. Attempts to stabilize this area have been made by Gordon Chemical Incorporated, a former owner of the site, and the state of Illinois. This is an example of Livingston County having to monitor a situation after a company leaves. I bring this up because the county is responsible for dealing with the toxic waste that still exists at this facility today, even though it was abandoned in the 1980s by the company who last owned it. According to the fact sheet 4 from the EPA website, do you want? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I think it's on the 3rd page of the sheets you have down towards the bottom, the last paragraph. According to fact sheet 4 from the EPA website, and I quote, "The next heavy rain could wash out a weakened berm holding the northwest side of a pond on the site called Fresh Pond. That berm is holding back tens of millions of gallons of very acidic wastewater that has either run off or percolated through the large pile of gypsum waste. Release of that water to the adjacent Phillips Creek could cause a flood downstream to the Vermilion River. It could endanger fish and wildlife as well as any humans in the area at the time of the flooding," unquote. Companies such as Invenergy set up a limited liability corporation for their projects. If these projects need to be abandoned for any reason, the company stays financially secure and walks away from the individual project. We have heard people speak that Invenergy is not painting a true picture when it comes to decommissioning. Does the county have a strong enough ag impact mitigation agreement in place for the wind turbines? Or will the turbines be in another abandoned site for the county and its taxpayers to deal with? These are real situations that the ZBA and the Livingston County Board must take into consideration when voting for this special use permit. Even though it is just coming out, there is new information that turbines cause health problems. County health officials, like in Wisconsin, have started to realize this, and the turbines have been labeled a health hazard. In fact, Governor Walker of Wisconsin has just put $250,000 in his proposed budget to study the effects of wind turbines. On Monday, February 23rd, Mr. Hayes entered into evidence the Cape Bridgewater study done by Pacific Hydro, referred to as Hayes 1, that showed further evolving evidence that turbines can cause health problems. We used to think asbestos was a good form of insulation, and we put it in our homes, our businesses, and even our schools. Smoking was not realized to be the health hazard that it is. In fact, when I was a youngster, I can remember that menthol cigarettes being promoted as something to soothe your throats. With the passage of time, experience, and education, we now know that these items are extremely harmful. Given some more time for studies, I feel that the large turbines will fall firmly into the category of health hazard as asbestos and smoking have. Yes, we are asking our local bodies of government to look around corners to protect our way of life. I would venture to say most people don't like others telling them what they can do with property they own. We fall into that category. People who have signed up probably don't feel that we should be telling them what to do on their land. I can understand that. We do feel we have a right to ask you to consider our opinions about turbines going up on our neighbor's land. It affects our quality of life, our property values, and the turbines are being built with taxpayer, our money. There are many instances of neighbor input when changes are made. At another ag and zoning meeting, neighbors had to be notified and given a chance to object if they don't want a subdivision coming in. If you live in town, you have to have permission to even put up a fence because it has the potential to affect your neighbors and their property value. Certainly 136, nearly 500-foot tall, noisy, disruptive, red light flashing, shadow flickering turbines have the potential to impact neighbors in many ways. So we feel we do get an opinion on their construction. In reality, who would choose to live by these monstrosities? The experts. We've all spent hours, days, weeks of our lives that we'll never get back, listening to the experts and our lawyers argue this case. The lawyers and the experts are all just here doing their jobs. If given the task, Mr. Blazer or Mr. Luthahand could both argue the other side of the case of this special use permit. That would be their job. The experts could dig up material to show the other side of the argument. That would be their job. When questioned, Invenergy's experts admitted that at times they had a narrow scope of what they were supposed to study. In other words, the company didn't want the real facts out there. Invenergy carefully controlled what facts they wanted to enter into record. We all know that facts don't lie, but what facts are used and what facts are left out can be misleading. Invenergy is the largest wind company in America and has done this many times before and has honed their craft well. This is their job. If we had as deep as pockets as Invenergy, we could hire legions of experts and legions of secretaries to run off reams of material to overload you with also. This isn't just a job for us. We are fighting for our way of life. We have tried to hire experts to give realistic statistics of what will be applicable in this area. We haven't taken figures from the internet on what should happen in decommissioning. We had someone research what would happen in this area when the turbines are decommissioned. I feel if Invenergy really planned to use local labor, one of their promises of providing local jobs, that is what they would have done also. When Mr. Blazer was trying to discredit Mr. Hewson's figures on decommissioning, he asked Mr. Hewson if he would be surprised that it would only take 7 to 8 months to put up 136 turbines when Mr. Hewson reported that Visser Construction estimated it would take 4.5 years to totally take down, cut up the metal for scrap, remove the rock, and haul it away. First of all, I don't know what putting up the towers has to do with taking them down. Construction-wise, they are two totally different actions. But being able to put them up so quickly does point out that they will be bringing in laborers that they have worked with before on other projects and not using local labor as promised. We didn't use hedonic models to study property values. We had an actual real estate agent give us real figures of what's been happening in this area. And we don't think people come in with preconceived ideas that infrasound or shadow flicker will bother them. We have this opinion because we listen to the people who have had to move out of their homes, had health problems, or cell and TV reception problems. How powerful was Mr. Englehart's testimony that he has 5 turbines on his land and that the $37,000 a year he receives from them is not worth it. He also told us of the multitude of problems that came with the turbines and how unresponsive the company is. Mr. Sticknott of Iroquois County was a person who wanted the turbines in their area. Reality was a hard slap when he began to experience problems after they were put in. He doesn't have a dog in this fight, but was just trying to give us the benefit of his real-life experience. Invenergy has tried to convince us what a good neighbor they will be. As Mr. Glazer told us, they are the largest wind turbine company in America. By the nature of making their large company successful once again, they are like politicians. They overpromise and overstate how great their product is and how they'll be there for the landowners. As with politicians, once they are elected, those promises are forgotten. We heard from people who live around turbines or have them on their land that the company's promises are hollow. We owe a great debt to the people who took the time to tell us of their experiences. There was nothing in it for them. They can't rewrite their history, but they are trying to warn the county not to go down the same road. As these people who came to speak of their problems have to live in the real world, we also deal in reality. Invenergy's experts say there is a certain subset of people who have conditions that make them more susceptible to the turbine's effects. Are the people who signed up for a turbine fooling themselves that no one in the footprint has any pre-existing conditions like high blood pressure, anxiety, hearing issues, autism, or sleep problems that might be made worse by a thumping, flashing, noisy turbine? These turbines are going to be more than an annoyance to a lot of people. They are going to destroy our way of life. In addition, they could destroy our biggest asset, our homes and the value of our land. It's been shocking to see how far Invenergy will go to discredit a witness. If they can't discredit the testimony, they try to discredit the person. The company tried to introduce statements made by a researcher's husband, which the ZBA wisely saw through. Who knew they'd monitor what meetings ordinary citizens attend and look into your private life so much that they could produce your name from a list that is 3 to 4 years old? Who knew they'd monitor our Facebook pages trying to intimidate us? Do you feel like Big Brother is watching? That stuff may fly in the Windy City, but ordinary citizens don't think too highly of those tactics. I came across a quote recently that I thought fit the cooperators who signed up. The best propaganda is factually correct information delivered by people who passionately believe what they are saying is the truth. These cooperators believe it will bring money to the area, and they might even believe it's green energy. For a reason as old as time, some have taken a bite of the poison apple. They've been told they don't have to do anything and they will get paid for it. As with most things, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There are consequences to giving a large company whose sole purpose is to make money legal access to your land. Even though they seem friendly now, they will run over you just like they did Mr. Engelhart, and the company will just look at it as the price of doing business. The friendly faces of the Invenergy employees the cooperators have seen so far won't be the faces they see when they have a problem. Those friendly faces will have moved on to the siting of another wind farm. That is their job. We here in the heartland of America have to stand up right here, right now, to stop the fleecing of the American taxpayer so large companies can redistribute the wealth, our money, to political cronies, non-American-based companies, and unions that perpetuate this fraud on the American people under the guise of green energy. Even though the Regional Planning Commission of Livingston County has signed on for a wind farm previously, they did their research and looked at the new information out there. They unanimously voted that Invenergy's application does not meet the Livingston County Comprehensive Plan. We asked both of these bodies of government, the Livingston County Board and the Zoning Board of Appeal, to deal in reality as well in looking at this special use permit. Pause for a minute and add 30 years to your age. This is when the decommissioning of the turbines will start happening. Most, if not all, of the people on the Livingston County Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals won't still be on the boards. I would like to think the people sitting on these two boards signed up for this duty out of a sense of serving the public. As physicians take an oath to do no harm, I would think the members would be doing a lot of soul searching before the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Livingston County Board vote. I hope they call to mind the Nate and Paula Kelson family and the Brian and Whitney Bell family. Think of their children and what you will be robbing them of. I hope the board will take a personal stance not to do something that may help the county now, but harm the county and its residents in the long run. What will your legacy be? We shouldn't have to feel that we are fighting the county government along with the large companies. You are the people who promised to service the community where these turbines are being sited. You are the next step in protecting the people in the Pleasant Ridge area, the surrounding towns, and those in a 30-mile radius who will have to live with them. Please vote no on this special use permit.
Units of local government, school districts, out there. All right, council on either side, questions?
Hi, Mrs. Andrews. We've gotten along until now, we will until this is over. So, just a really quick question. Your property on East 300, that's classified as farmland, improved agricultural, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Lukian, do you have any questions? All right. Interested parties in the audience? Any interested parties in the audience? Anybody? County staff? DBA again? Thank you. Next on the list, Jerome P. Kurtenbach. All right, yeah. Dwayne Schneider. Dwayne Schneider, are you available this evening to talk?
You know what, I'm sorry, that's my fault, excuse me. His name should be off the list, he's not testifying.
Rick Miller. Rick Miller, are you available this evening?
Yes.
Just for the record, too, the county will accept UCLC Exhibit 126. It's from the Illinois EPA Smith Douglas site.
Okay.
You're gonna want to be at the podium. So by the podium, all right, Mr. Miller, looks like you're ready to go. All right, we'll go ahead and affirm you. You do solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the testimony you shall give in this case now I'm hearing will be the truth and nothing but the truth, or that you suffer the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
All right, please state your name and address for our court reporter, and then go ahead with your presentation.
My name is Rick Miller. I'm from Wayne, Illinois.
You can lift the microphone up. There you go.
It doesn't stick.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and yeah, I really appreciate it. And just for the record, none of my comments tonight can be reflected back any club or organization that I belong to. First thing I'd like to talk about is common sense, which came up the other night. Common sense. There have been a lot of things that have seemed like common sense, like the sun goes around the earth, or the world is flat. That's where we get the term four corners of the earth. You're talking about. Then we get more toward the present, and common sense says there's a supply of limestone that will never quit. So you can imagine my surprise when I went to Prairie Aggregates and they said we have a 5-year supply of stone. So I said, well, what are we going to do? And he said, well, we'll look for some other pockets of limestone. So what did they do? But they dug a big pit north of Weston, expecting to get limestone. Well, it turned out it was deeper than what they expected, and it was also filled with shale. So that completely eliminated that as a source of limestone for roads, concrete, and things like that. So it seemed like finding these pockets of limestone was no easier than repairing drainage tile. Both very tough things to do. And I worked for a retirement company for a while, and some of the guts were okay, but some of them were just a quick hit and go. And there will be a lot of drainage tile affected by the heavy equipment running across the fields. And so we went on, and I asked if he thought the amount of concrete in the foundations was a lot, and he said, yeah, that's a lot, but that hardly compares to the amount of stone that they use for the access roads. This is going to show the access road.
I got it.
Okay, this will show the access roads that are in the project, the proposed project. Now, these maps all come out of the book, the application for the Pleasant Ridge Wind Farm. And I don't know if you've seen that or not. They're available on computers, and I don't know if there are any books left, but these maps came straight out from the book. Okay, you have long access roads for towers 118, 119, 120, and 21. I mean, those things are long. You find the same thing on the 131 and 132. Here we go again, 23, 24, 25, and 26. They're right up here. Very long access roads. And then again, you could look at 47, 48, 18, 19, 20, all very long access roads. Well, with the shortage of stone and the fact that none of the local quarries will bid on this project to supply the stone, the only one left pretty much is up at Lehigh near Kankakee. And they raised their prices early in the year, and then the other quarries around here raised their prices 1st of March. So, you know, the use of stone is promoting a lot of expense for us. And so I feel that that affects the whole county and even some of the places outside the county. Getting back to the getting back to the material used in the foundations of these towers, we'll see that there are 319 cubic yards of concrete dumped into the hole, along with 15.6 tons of steel, and the other parts involved, the sand, the cement, and the water, which is no small matter. They get dumped into this 16-foot deep hole, and that takes a lot of material. And if you have to haul a rock from 40 or 50 miles away, you have a real expense. Now, I don't know if that's been taken into consideration by the wind farm people or not, or whether it's just a case of we'll pay whatever necessary. You know, that to me is a big problem. Now, I've heard that the length of the access roads was 31 miles, but in the book it says 53 miles. So we'll go by the book, yes. That's a lot of road building and a lot of stone to put in a temporary roadway. In addition to the concrete and everything, it's going to take 53,000 cubic yards of stone to make these roads. In fact, it takes 53,000 coarse stone and 53,000 cubic yards of medium-sized stone. Again, that's a lot of hauling, a lot of digging. You know, it's just a tremendous burden on someone to get this in place. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the disruption that this causes. Again, this is from the book. Figure 3.3, proposed project lighting plan. Now, if you think the lights are only around the perimeter, you better check it out. They are spread around the footprint of the project. And while I'm thinking of footprint, I'm also thinking there is an earprint where you can hear these things even when you're not in the footprint of the project. Then you could say there's a sight print where you can see far beyond the limits of the project. So, that's something we have to consider. And if you want to see these closer, you can come up or you can look in your book or something. Then the next thing that's very important to me is Fugit Woods. Now, Fugit Woods is one of the few natural areas left in this part of the county. The rest of the county, I'd say, is like scorched earth policy, where there's really no place for wildlife to make their life. So I know of the generosity of the gift to the community, and every brochure that comes out seems to mention Fugit Woods as a main attraction to the county. I'll pass some of these out. So, which is available at every grocery store, shop, retail business. First page says, enjoy tranquility. Now, I don't think tranquility and wind turbines can exist together. This is 150 acres of native timber and restored prairie. Visitors are invited to hike serene grounds and trails rich in wildlife and native plants. Again, if you look at the placement of these towers, towers 20 and 21 are within a mile of Fugit Woods. That, to me, is a real slap in the face to the Fugit family for donating this unique property. The wind farm will put those places in jeopardy. Fugit Woods. Fugit Woods is located in section 36 of Avoca Township. It's a little thing here, 150 acres, in the middle of all of this other stuff. And if you appreciate wildlife and nature, you want to protect this. I work for the Department of Natural Resources as what they call citizen science. we surveyed in one part the woodland in Livingston County, and we surveyed the streams in Livingston County, the water courses, and we looked at the prairie, the natural vegetation in the county. So what we found on this survey of forests, it was mostly multiflora rose and wild garlic. Well, no, it's some of these other thorny bushes. And we literally had to crawl underneath those multiflora rows to set out our stakes for measuring. Yeah, I mean, it was something. So there's no place in Livingston County that can match. I'm slipping past some woods. That's great. But there's no place that can match Fugate Woods for its serenity, its variety of trees and shrubs. Just nothing. And we're in jeopardy by having two towers within a mile of that place. One is 7/10 of a mile, and the other one is within a mile. So that's far closer than what you can expect for a quiet area. According to some of the people I talked to, those blades can be heard for 2 miles on a given day. And it's nothing at all to hear those within 7/10 of a mile. The whooshing sound, and you get the flicker, then you get everything else that comes along with big towers in a small place. So I feel strongly about this, that the wind energy company did not feel very much for the community if they're going to jeopardize really the only good spot in this part of the county. So I went to a meeting in Bloomington, and this has been several years ago, and they were talking about the wind towers, pro and con. It was kind of an even tempered kind of thing. And I said, well, you know, there's a lot of birds that migrate in the same paths as what these turbines are in, height-wise, whatever else they have to deal with. And I said, well, we take something common like a red-winged blackbird. They migrated about, I don't know, maybe 100 feet high. I said, well, how's this going to affect them? And he said, well, some make it and some don't. I really didn't see that as a very good answer. And there are a lot of birds that are far less common than those that will be affected by this. I also participated in a grassland survey along with the DNR, and those birds that inhabit grasslands are almost all low-flying creatures. And you've got these blades of a certain diameter, and it's not only the diameter of the blade, but they affect the air above, to the sides, and down below. So it's not just a small thing. I mean, it expands way bigger. Another thing about Freedom Woods is that many school children help with the volunteer projects on those. I was with a group, it would have been 2 years ago, that planted a lot of trees and bushes as a riparian buffer along the creek. And that creek is the only waterway that we surveyed in Livingston County where you can take a sight gauge and look down and see to the bottom of the tube. These other places, they're just murky. Not necessarily polluted, but they've got a lot of clay carried in them, and it's a pleasant thing to see the clear water with the aquatic creatures in it. So the kids not only learn about nature when they run the volunteer project, but they also learn how to volunteer and help something other than themselves. So, that's a big deal. Anything that will keep the residents or the volunteers off of their cell phone, or whatever, and so it's a very, very important thing. So now that I'm used to all this high-tech equipment, I think I'll stop. And thank you.
Do we have any questions? DBA have any questions, Mr. Miller? All right, students of local government school districts, you're out there. Mr. Blazer, Mr. Lukens, do you have any questions of Mr. Miller?
No, sir. Mr. Miller, could you tell me what your address is again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Your address?
12526 North. 2700 East Road, Forest, Illinois. Route 12, number 2700 is Route 47 in Livingston County.
And your middle initial is S as in Sam? What's your middle initial?
S.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody in the audience with questions of Mr. Miller? Anybody else? Come on up. Make sure you state your name. Oh, Mr. Miller. Mr. Hayes has a few questions for you.
Okay. Just a couple of quick questions about rock, Mr. Miller. The street I live on, the streets I need to get to my house are stone, which I'm pretty sure comes locally, and then they oil it and that. Would you consider that a good use of the rock that comes out of our quarries?
For the residential streets, yes, and we also get chips to put on the blacktop roads in the summer to keep them solid.
Yes, that's the kind of rock I'm talking about, pretty much, is the small chips. Now, if the proposed wind farm went in and they used up a lot of the 5-year supply that we have of rock, my point of view is that somebody here in the county is going to go looking for places to put new quarries, and I suspect they will probably find some. Do you have any ideas as to what that might do to the amount of farmable acreage in the county?
Well, in the first place, none of the local quarries have bid on this project. The only one who has bid on it is Lehigh up near Kankakee. Now, they're in a big hole, nice hard stone, but how are you going to get it from there to here? And so I would say, you know, the residential roads are fine, and we talk about recapturing the stone after decommission, which I think will never happen, decommissioning. But you can't salvage much out of that, much clean stone out of that after a lot of traffic is run over it.
Thank you, that's all.
Anybody else in the audience with questions for Mr. Miller? Anybody? County staff, county council? All right. Mr. Miller, thank you. All right, I've got it 7:48. I think it's a good time to take a break. 10 minutes. 7:58. We'll get going again. The county will accept Miller Exhibit 1 as a pamphlet titled Come to Fairbury. All right, the next witness on the list that I have, Rebecca Fair. Rebecca Fair, are you available this evening to speak?
Mr. Cornell, I advise council that Mr. Blake and Mr. Griffin, if Ms. Fair, I'll be calling her Wednesday.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's why I put a W next to it. All right. I told you guys it was a rough night tonight. All right. Next witness on the list, Julie Fosnick. Julie Fosnick, are you available this evening? Can you be sworn in, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this case now here shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, please state your name and address for the court reporter, and you may begin.
Julia Bostic, 14530 East, 1300 North Road, Pontiac. I'm the 14th generation farmer in my family, according to a family genealogist, and I'm at least the 4th generation in Livingston County. I care about this community and its long-term welfare and success. My husband and I are part of the group of landowners that began being contacted by early 2005 with a proposal to build a wind farm. This proposal, we believed, was for a smaller project, north and east of Forest, which is in the heart of the current proposed project area. At that time, there were a number of wind farms in the planning stages and beginning construction, but only one operational in Illinois. Orion Energy was proposing this one wind farm and another called Camp Grove that was in Marshall and Stark counties. The Camp Grove project was built in 2007. According to their website, there's 100 turbines there. And Orion also built 2 other projects in Indiana, Fowler Ridge and Benton County, which went online in 2008. On June 3rd, 2005, the Livingston County Farm Bureau hosted a meeting for its members and brought representatives from their general counsel office there to help landowners understand the ins and outs of wind energy development, contracts, and other things related. It was a great opportunity to get some direction in how to proceed. Many of our neighbors were at this meeting, and we talked and agreed that we needed to all get together and work together in this. The Forest Chatsworth Wind Study Group was really birthed from that meeting. Our group began to meet together regularly to study and research all aspects of wind farms. A philosophy of many heads are better than one got us together and kept us together. Every landowner had the opportunity to sign up their land with a developer and get a check, but none did. This group, representing about 40 landowners, worked together over the course of many months. I'm honored to have been part of such a fine group of people. For my part in this group, I personally contacted landowners and people living in existing wind farms in at least 4 states besides Illinois. I talked to local officials in those areas. I talked to landowners, and we visited wind farms and wind farms under construction, and we also searched on the internet. We asked all of these contacts about their contracts and what kinds of things they would do differently if they did it over again. Would they do it again? What could have made their project better? And many of the provisions in the contract we ended up with came from what we learned from others. Our research also included researching the wind company, Orion, that was proposing this project. We talked to landowners and projects that Orion had built, as well as looking into their corporate situation. As we began to discuss contract provisions with Orion, they were unwilling to negotiate much of anything. Their corporate headquarters were in California, and they weren't very available for discussion. Their plan was to lease the land and then to sell the package to some other company to build it. Ultimately, our group agreed that we were unwilling to move forward with any project with Orion. However, we as a group believed it to be a positive opportunity for our community and chose to pursue it further with another developer. Invenergy Wind was chosen, and some of the reasons were their good reputation with landowners in existing projects, their experience and background in energy development, the fact that they're a U.S. company and headquartered in Illinois, their focus on retaining ownership of projects after construction, and their reputation for high-quality operations and maintenance. In February 2006, Invenergy erected the first Met Tower in the project area to study the wind resource. We signed our first contract with Invenergy that same month. I believe our process for researching to come to that decision was a sound process. I have done consulting work part-time for Invenergy since 2007. Early on, I did signing of leases with landowners. When Invenergy chose to expand the project, they brought in full-time leasing agents, and my responsibility shifted more to working with landowners with Met Towers and processing address and ownership changes. My family and I have had a relationship with Energy for nearly 10 years. During that time, I've seen a number of ways in which they have been very responsive and forward-thinking. One example is the painting of Met Towers in alternate color stripes. The original idea industry-wide was to leave them a dull color so that they blended in the background and were not obtrusive. A local crop duster contacted me and requested that they be painted so that they would stand out and be easier to see. I contacted Chicago, and they told me to go for it. 3 new Met Towers were about to be erected at that time, and we had them painted in alternating colors before they were erected. The existing towers were soon laid down and painted as well. Down the road, this became, I believe, a legal requirement for all towers, but Invenergy did it before it was required. It just made sense. Invenergy also is willing to enter into an agricultural impact mitigation agreement with Livingston County. At another meeting sponsored by the Livingston County Farm Bureau that I attended in 2014, the attorney there explained that these mitigation agreements are required in a pipeline project in Illinois, and the Farm Bureau has been trying unsuccessfully to get them to become a state standard in wind projects. Invenergy didn't wait for the politics to move and make it a standard. They chose to do it now. In June of this year, I attended a town hall meeting sponsored by the Livingston County Board. At this meeting, they had Ted Hartke speak about his experience living in a wind farm. He said that his family was sometimes unable to sleep at night and that he would call the Invenergy Operations Center and get them to shut down the turbine near his home. Once again, this sounded like Invenergy doing their best to make things work. This is a reaction I would expect from Invenergy. I was surprised and puzzled that he didn't allow Invenergy to bring sound experts in to test and figure out why he was having this problem. He stated that he had checked into soundproofing his house and that it was not economically feasible. That meeting left me, sort of like Paul Harvey, wondering what was the rest of the story. Some things have changed since I first got involved with this project. Many wind farms have been built, turbines have gotten taller, farm commodity prices have increased and decreased. Some significant changes in the electric generation picture are here as well. Proposed EPA rules will likely lead to the shutdown of a number of coal-fired power plants. These are some of our cheapest sources of electricity and currently supply about 41% of our electricity in Illinois. This shutdown seems to be targeted for 2016, which is just next year. According to an article in Illinois Country Living, the electric co-op magazine, about 48% of our electricity generated in Illinois comes from nuclear plants. There are 6 nuclear plants located around the state. The owner of 3 of these plants, Exelon Corp, gave notice in July of 2014 that 3 of its plants, Clinton, Byron, and Quad Cities, were at risk of shutting down due to their lack of profitability. If they cannot sell the power for a sufficiently high price, it's not economically feasible for them to continue operation. There were additional announcements concerning this in the past month or so. Then there's the Future Gen Coal project, designed to provide a commercial-scale clean coal generating facility, which took a blow recently when the Department of Energy backed out of its funding for the project. My information on that came from the Daily Pantograph. And the problem with all of this is that the previous winter, not this winter, but the winter before, it took all the generation sources that we had in Illinois to keep us warm. We usually think about brownouts and rolling blackouts during summer usage, but winter could be even more devastating. So if we lose very many of these generation sources, where will we get enough electricity? Some people are in favor of gas-fired generation, as it is currently relatively cheap, and that can change, and gas has lower carbon emissions than coal. However, there are other costs to that form as well. Fracking poses risk to groundwater, uses huge amounts of sand and water, and we have no idea what the long-term consequences of disturbing things deep within the earth are. I do know that huge areas of Wisconsin are being mined for sand, being measured in train loads per day. For me, the environmental risks and costs of fracking are unacceptably high. Which leaves us with the need to work together to provide new sources of clean energy and learn to conserve. I believe that this wind farm would be a vital asset to our community. We have worked together from the beginning to make it the best quality project possible. It could provide jobs, revenue, and a source of power generation. This project needs us to work together to see it to fruition.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the ZBA at this point? All right. Local government, school districts, anybody out there with questions? All right. Council on either side, do we have any questions?
Not from me, sir. Ms. Bostic, how many wind turbines are on your family's property?
There are no wind turbines on our property now.
How many turbines will be, or if this project goes forward?
There could be 5.
Okay. And you don't live on that property, correct? You live up in Pontiac?
A family member does live on the property.
Okay.
I do not, but a family member does.
Thank you. And you're a paid consultant for Invenergy, is that correct?
Yes, part-time.
And you've been doing that since 2007, you
Yes.
said? Okay. And the agricultural impact mitigation agreement that you talked about that's to be entered into with the county, that has not been finalized, has it?
Not to my knowledge.
In fact, were you here last week when Mr. Blazer said that it was still a draft?
No, I was not here last week.
Okay. And the Exelon, when it was talking about shutting down its plants, that was when it was looking to get a rate increase from the state of Illinois and the ICC, correct?
Yes, they need to make enough to be viable.
So they were posturing that if they didn't make enough money or get a rate increase, they would shut down these plants, correct?
Yes, but I believe that it involves, it's very involved in the fact that their plants are aging and are going to require a lot of upgrades. So they either have to invest in them, they can't just keep running an old plant indefinitely.
And neither you nor I are energy experts, is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
And neither you nor I are experts on fracking and the environmental impact of fracking, correct?
That's correct.
Nothing further.
Any members of the audience that have a question?
Amber Severson. Mrs. Fosdick, is that correct? You said your family owns some land there, and you don't live there, but a family member does. How many acres does your family own there?
I'm going to say 500.
Okay, 500 acres. And all of your land is contracted with Invenergy?
The land there, yes.
Okay. And you did speak that you were involved in consigning leases with other people in the beginning stages, and that you yourself signed a lease with Invenergy, obviously for 500 acres?
Yes.
Are you aware that you didn't sign a lease, you signed an easement statement, an easement contract?
Yes, I'm aware that that's just kind of a term people call them leases, but it's not.
Do you understand that legally there's a great difference between a leasehold estate and an easement estate?
Yes.
And you have no problem knowing that your 500 acres is an easement in total?
Yes. No, I don't have a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else in the audience with questions?
Kathy Fair from Fairbury. Do you work for Invenergy?
I'm a consultant. If they need me to do something, I can do that. I worked very little in the last few months.
Does Invenergy have a buyer for the power that these wind farms are going to generate, our local ones?
I'm not privy to that information.
And you spoke of the wind farms generating energy to help us. Most of the wind farms locally do not benefit any of us. The power is shipped elsewhere. Do you know of any local farms that generate energy for the local people?
I do know that the one over by Paxton, some of the REAs have bought that power. Rail Splitter in Logan and Tazewell, the rural electric co-ops, some of them have bought power from that one. So yes, some of the power is staying in Illinois. And if you look at how electricity works, it's kind of like you put water in a hose. So even though power is sold there, it may be sold there, but you might be using the power from it.
Nothing further.
Anybody else in the audience with questions? All right, please state your name. Make sure you hold that microphone so everybody can hear you.
I'm Sharon Schroff. I spoke earlier. I want to ask you too, because you are interested in helping Invenergy do this project, do you feel like this area is quite populated, both rural and in our towns? We've got towns that are pretty populated, lots of schools with lots of children in them, and churches and such things. It's a big populated area. Often wind turbines are in areas that are less populated. And I feel that'd be a better job. How do you feel about it? Because you're Pleasant Ridge too.
I don't really understand your question.
How do you feel about our not overpopulation, but our large rural and village populations being impacted by 136 turbines? When maybe it would be better if they were in an area that's less populated. How do you feel about that?
Wind farms that are built in remote places where there's no population, the need for electricity is not there.
And this will help us get more electricity. Well, this
If you're talking putting in somewhere where the nearest town is 100 miles away, then, you know, there's not the need for electricity there.
Oh, I thought there was, sometimes they had them like, you know, in big areas, flat land or high land or whatever. I don't know the answer to that. I just wondered how you felt about our area being used for that when we've got such populated people and so many people wish we weren't going to have that happen.
I signed a contract, I guess that tells you that I feel like it was appropriate use here.
Well, thank you.
Anybody else in the audience with questions? Ma'am, hold on. Yeah. We'll take his and then we'll take yours next.
Bureau of Cavazos. I just had a question on the percentages of power, nuclear power, and coal power. 48 and 41%, I think you said. Do you know how many wind turbines would it take to equal that amount, or how big the footprint would be?
I don't think we would ever replace all generating sources with wind. We just need to have a diversity of sources.
Yeah, I guess I don't know the answer to that either. I just didn't know if you did, but I don't think they produce not even close to the same amount of power. And I think, you know, for us here, there's a limited amount of land. But anyways, I guess the answer is you don't know how many.
I don't know what a footprint would take to do 41% of the power in Illinois, but I don't think that's really anybody's goal at this point.
Well, thank you.
All right.
I'm Sherry Geisner, and my address is 11265 North, 2300 East Rutherford. I'm just wondering, it's kind of going through my mind, we have peak seasons where we use more electricity than others. We have no way to control the wind when it's going to blow. So if the wind is not blowing, we have a peak season, we get very little use out of it. Do you agree with that?
That's why we need a mix of clean energy sources.
Okay. And do you know?
The sun doesn't shine all the time either.
Right. But if it's continually generating in the electricity, we have to have a place for it to go, right?
I don't understand your question.
If the wind is blowing a lot, we don't really need the electricity at that point. We have to have a place to sell it. So we can't, what I'm saying is we can't control the peak seasons and the low seasons with the way the wind blows. So to me, it's kind of hard to conceive that it would help all the time. And to that, I would like to know if you know what percent that the wind energy would generate normally. I've heard in some countries it's not like 1%.
I don't know exactly what your question is. What percentage the wind generation is in Illinois, or?
That would be a good question. I mean, how much of our energy can come from the wind? You're saying it's 41%.
No, I said 41% was coal, I think.
Right. And 48 was it
for nuclear?
So what percentage would the wind?
Well, we have some goals in our state to get up to 15%, to get up to 20%. That's part of that, creating a mix of various kinds of
So you can't
clean energy. I don't know what those exact figures are right now. No, I don't have those with me.
Anybody else in the audience with questions? Anybody? County staff, county council, ZBA, we're good? Thank you. All right, we need to let the record indicate that an additional member joined us after the break. Joan Huseman joined the meeting after the break. All right. Next on the list, Karen Brands. Karen Brands. All right, Ms. Brands. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case now and hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, please state your name and address for our court reporter, and then go ahead when you're ready.
Karen Brands, 3891 North, 3350 East Road, Chatsworth, Illinois. First of all, I want to thank ZBA for allowing us to speak. It's been a trying time for all of us. I live just south of Chatsworth. These industrial wind turbines are not quite near me yet. However, I do have family that will be surrounded by them. After researching on my own and attending the hearings, I have grave concerns for my family and others who will be near these turbines. I feel strongly that it's wrong that the health, safety, and property rights of these people are going to be infringed upon without their say. We've heard a lot of evidence up to this point, and frankly, most of it has not been good. Some things we've learned so far. The low frequency noise can cause sleep disruption, and over time may lead to negative health effects. Shadow flicker will cause annoyance. They may interfere with migration routes of birds and bats and may cause unwarranted stress. TV and internet connections can be severely affected. Property values will most likely be negatively affected. Drain tile within the counties will be affected, and non-participating families, farmers, will be on their own to deal with the repercussions. Lastly, they may simply affect the overall well-being of an individual or hinder their enjoyment of their property. We have heard from the individuals who have already dealt with the costs of having industrial wind turbines. Do we ignore all the risks that seem to be evident, or do we overlook them for a monetary gain that is unclear? For those who are interested in the project for the jobs, I understand. But is it truly worth 6 to 8 months of work for a handful of people to create an industrial park in our prime agriculture setting? Just a couple of businesses, new businesses in the county, would create more permanent jobs than this project is set to provide. I am deeply bothered by the lack of transparency that the applicant has shown, from skating around questions to the secrecy in their solicitation that has been revealed. If they were truly involved in the community, there would not be this lack of transparency. I moved to the country over 15 years ago, and I love this area. I don't want to see it turn into an industrial area. I want to continue to see the flocks of ducks, geese, and other birds fly through our clear skies. That is one of the perks of the country living in. And I surely don't want my friends, family, and neighbors to live with the risks that are associated with these turbides. The dictionary defines risk as exposure to the chance of injury or loss, a hazard or dangerous chance. Do we risk the well-being of our children and forests, or jeopardize the lives and property of our neighbors? The risks or costs of this project seem to severely outweigh the reward. The majority of the people that lived in and around the proposed project are opposed to this, and I speak for many who for one reason or another are unable to speak in front of you. It seems clear to me what the feelings of the majority are, and if this project is approved, I can't help but believe that the health, safety, and rights of the citizens in the county were neglected for some small financial gain. Thank you for your time and attention.
Do we have questions at this point? All right. Local government, school districts, council on either side, any questions, Ms. Brands? All right. Members of the community or the audience, any questions? Ms. Brands? Nothing? County Council, ZBA, round 2. Thank you. Is Larry Fosdick available to speak this evening? Larry Fosdick? He's there. Mr. Fosdick, do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, please state your name and address for a court reporter, and then you can go ahead and get going with your presentation.
Larry Fosdick, 14530 East, 1300 North Road, Pontiac. I'm going to go through this real quick. I did look at what my wife said, and so some of this is going to be a little repetitious, but not a lot, I don't think, so I'll try to get through it. We'll go from there. This report is an attempt to condense 10 years of work into a few paragraphs. The wind energy project is not a new or hastily prepared project. It has evolved over a 10-year period to what it is today. My personal experience with wind energy began in early 2005 when one of my landlords received a letter from a wind energy company wanting to see her about signing a wind lease. She called me, and about 90 years old at this time, she didn't know what the letter was about or what she should do with it. So I told her we'd look at it, and we'd look into it, and that began our involvement in wind energy. In 2005, there were no local wind farms anywhere close to us. The closest one was Pawpaw by Mendota. Very few people around here knew much about them, so we started with an open mind and a willingness to learn. That is when we found out the local Farm Bureau was sponsoring an informational meeting in the near future on wind leases, and we attended. The meeting was very informative. It gave us some good background and a starting point as to what to do next. After that meeting, we made contact with some of the neighboring farmers and landowners, found that some of them had also received letters. We decided that we didn't know enough about these windmills to make an intelligent decision as to whether they would be good for the community or not. We talked to some of the neighbors that had also attended the meeting and decided to make arrangements to rent the Forest Library. We had a meeting to discuss the proposed project. Calls were made to as many people in the area as we could make contact with. We invited them and any interested parties to attend. A lot of people showed up with many more questions than answers. From this meeting, it was learned that no one attending has as yet signed a contract. It was also decided that many heads would be better than one, and that we should work together as a group and study the issue before anyone signed a contract. People came up with questions, other people volunteered who were asked to find the answer to these questions. Some of the group was allowed to attend similar meetings going on in northern Livingston and Bureau counties, giving us all more insight into our community's questions, into other communities' questions and experiences. During the course of these meetings, we had approximately 40 landowners and others that brought ideas, questions, and answers to this wind study group. Many of the same issues that have been brought up at these hearings were looked at by this wind study group. A lawyer that was familiar with wind leases was hired and work on the lease began. After going over the proposed lease, several changes were wanted by the group. Wind company that we were dealing with at that time was not willing to make the changes. This group voted and decided they liked the idea of wind energy. However, they also said they were not willing to sign leases with an out-of-state company that we could not trust to treat people in a fair manner. The group voted against signing with this company. A short time later, it was brought to our attention there was an Illinois-based wind company that was putting up wind turbines. They were contacted and asked to come down and talk to us. It was a night and day difference negotiating a contract with Invenergy as compared to the previous company. Invenergy listened to our concerns and were willing to make a lot of the changes that we wanted. And if they couldn't make the changes, they explained why. They negotiated in good faith, and we came up with an acceptable contract. Eventually, the wind study group voted to accept the contract from Invenergy, and sometime in early 2006, the neighbors started signing contracts. No one, to my knowledge, signed a contract until the group as a whole had studied and okayed it. Sometime later, Invenergy decided to make this project bigger, to include some additional areas east and south of Forest. The wind study group remained available to answer questions and continued to give assistance when we could. Then sometime later, I think around 2008, the footprint was expanded again south of Fairburg. And at that time, after having worked on this project for about 3 years, we felt we had accomplished our goal of getting a good quality wind project for our community and did not feel the need to continue meeting as the contractual work had been completed. From 2006 to present, Invenergy has faithfully lived up to their lease agreements. The original group of leases has been re-signed, and hundreds of other people have also signed leases. Each signed lease is a positive vote for this project, as each participant exercised their individual right as private landowners to sign or not. Many wind turbines have been erected around the country since this project was started. I and many other people in this study group have continually stopped, looked, listened, and asked the people that live there about their experiences. I've seen birds flying around them, I've seen rabbits running under them. I see life continuing on. The undisputed facts about the wind turbines have not changed. You have to look at them and they will cast a shadow. I believe that wind turbines can supply enough green energy to meet the needs of multiple thousands of homes, which I believe is a step in the right direction. In this project, it has been decided that wind turbines should be 1,500 feet from a residence. A 1,500-foot radius from a single residence controls over 160 acres of farm ground. I do believe we should be very careful about taking away ownership rights from one person, giving them to another. If we do it for one thing, what is to stop us from taking away our property rights for other things? First turbines, then what? Noisy grain legs, bins, dairy barns, hog houses, poultry houses. Where does it stop once we start down that slippery slope? The landowners in this project have been getting a lease payment from Invenergy for many years. If this project is denied, it will adversely affect the current and future income on every acre of ground in this project. I believe the schools will get the money for these turbines on time and not have to wait for the state to find the money they're supposed to send them. Over the lifetime of these turbines, there will be literally millions of dollars coming into our communities. More jobs will be created. If one son can return to the farm. If one person gets a job, then I think that is significant. While there are no perfect solutions, Americans' unending consumption of energy will keep growing, and wind energy is a good way to supply part of that demand. I feel that with Invenergy, this project will be a great benefit to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fosdick. Do we have any questions? Then, local government, school districts, any questions of Mr. Fosdick? Council on either side, do you have any questions for Mr. Fosdick?
Not for me, but I think he does. Of course. Mr. Fosdick, just so we're clear, Julie is your wife, correct?
That is correct.
And when did you make the decision to sign the contract with Invenergy?
It was back in 2006, I believe, after the group had decided that we would go with Invenergy.
Okay.
Nobody signed until the group decided it was a good thing to do.
And the group disbanded in 2008, I think you said?
Yes.
Okay. So both when you signed your contract and when the group had disbanded, there were no other wind turbine farms in Livingston County, correct, that were in existence?
They were being built. We talked to people in the northern part of the county who was in the process of building them. We had some people that we knew up in Bureau County, they were putting up, but the only ones at the very beginning was the ones up by Mendota.
Or one's what, I'm sorry. Oh, by Mendota, okay. So the point is that none were in operation when you executed your contract, correct? None in Livingston?
I don't know when the other was went in operation. I couldn't tell you for sure. I don't have starting dates on that.
Okay. You said that if the wind turbines go up, people will have to look at them and they will cast a shadow. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
They'll also create noise, correct?
There is some noise associated with them.
But there is noise, correct? They're not quiet.
I would say there's noise associated.
Okay. They're not silent. That's probably a better way to put it, correct?
I would say that's correct.
Okay. Nothing further.
Anybody in the audience with questions of Mr. Fosdick?
Amber Severson. Hi, Mr. Fosdick. At the beginning of your statement, you said that you had a 90-year-old neighbor lady who you actually did tenant farming for. I believe that's what you said. Is that correct?
One of my landlords got a letter. She was the first one to get the letter. You know, we took her up to Mendota and she walked underneath the turbines. I couldn't sign the farm up for her. She had to sign it herself.
And that was her land or her family's land?
Yes, it was.
Okay, how many acres was that, do you know?
That farm was 240 acres.
240 acres. And you told her, you instructed her that she was going to be signing a lease agreement?
No, I told her she needed to go up and take a look and make her own mind up. I don't make my mind up with my landlords. They're totally capable of doing that.
As you were speaking, you referred to all of these contracts as lease agreements. Do you understand that they're not lease estate agreements? Do you understand that they are easement agreements?
Oh, you mean, yes, that's fine.
So she was fine and convinced with signing all of her 240 acres for an easement?
Yes.
Do you understand that the easement isn't just for where the tower goes? It's not just for where the road goes, it's for the whole property?
That's correct.
Okay. And you as well signed one of these easement agreements, and you're fine with that?
Yes.
Do you understand that your property can be sub-easemented to other people, other entities?
We've had umpteen lawyers look at it, and we really put our confidence in the lawyers.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else from the audience with questions?
Yeah, my name is Larry Kaiser. Larry, how many, are you going to get some wind turbines?
If it's built, yes, we will.
How many?
5.
How close are you going to live to them?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Kaiser is one of Mr. Lucahan's clients.
Hold on one second.
This is Mr. Larry Kaiser, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the list.
All right, Mr. Kaiser, you'll have to. All right.
Good evening, John Hayes. When you signed these agreements, were there anybody in this area, by area I mean the whole part of central Illinois, complaining about wind farms?
They had the same complaints that we brought up here. I mean, when you went online and looked, you found the same thing. That's why we had to do all the investigating we did.
So in your investigation, you did come across complaints against wind farms?
Yeah, you can get online and they can be wonderful or they can be the devil's advocate. I mean, you find it anywhere. What we did, we actually visited the wind farms and we went door to door and we talked to people and we asked them, what kind of problems do you have here? And we've done that for 10 years. I was in the hospital this last week and one of the nurses that was there was an RN there and found out she lived in Saybrook and I said, hey, do you live in one of the wind farms? She said she did. I said, what kind of problems do you have? So we don't have any problems. I said, you can sleep at night, all right? Yeah, fine. He said, she had other good things to say about him, other than the fact, the negative thing she had to say was sometimes the lights at night bothered her, but it wasn't a big deal. And she said you could hear noise when you went outside and certain directions of wind, but she said no one was a problem. Matter of fact, she said it's been there long enough now, she doesn't even know they're there when she drives by. It's kind of like looking at telephone poles. And that was, that's all I asked and that's what I got. And we've done that constantly. And that's the answers we get.
Have you recently went online looking for, to see if there's, with the advancement of science and knowledge and bigger turbines, have you gone out to see if there's been any change in the literature out there?
I haven't personally went online and looked up fine stuff. I put more credibility into the people that actually live in the projects. You can get online, like I said, when you can prove anything, or you can disprove anything. I like to talk to people face to face, and that's how I got most of my information.
So you've gone to wind farm and talked to every resident that lives in it?
Oh, absolutely not.
That's all, thank you.
Anybody else in the audience with questions? Anybody? County staff, county council, ZBA again? All right, thank you, Mr. Bozick.
Thank you.
Roger Brown, you available this evening to talk?
No.
All right. We don't see Roger Brown. Next is
Mr. Chairman, I was just advised that he's returning from vacation. He's supposed to be here Wednesday.
All right. Carol Weibel. Carol, W-A-I-B-E-L. No Carol. All right. Julie Newhouse. She's not. That's okay. Danny Betts. Danny Betts.
I don't believe he'll be coming, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. I don't believe Mr. Betts will be coming.
Okay. Robert Lenz, Mr. Lenz, would you be all right to testify this evening? Okay, yeah, why don't you come up, save yourself a trip back. All right, Mr. Lenz, do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case now and hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name, address, for our court reporter, and then you can go ahead.
Okay, my name is Robert Lenz. I'm an attorney in Bloomington. My address there is 202 North Center. I've been practicing for over 50 years, and in the last 7 or 8 years, I've worked on about 15 wind farms around the state of Illinois, mostly in central Illinois. For example, I've done the road agreements for the wind farms here in Livingston County, where I represent the road commissioner. In this particular project, I represent all 9 road commissioners. We've had a number of meetings, starting in late November until recently, and it's ongoing. Our job is to make sure that if the county approves the project, then we want to make sure we end up with a road agreement that will provide for good, safe roads to rebuild in good conditions, better, at least really good conditions when this project is over. We have been studying the agricultural impact study, the report that's underway. We received on March 3rd the Livingston County Soil and Water Conservation Report. We reviewed the other Soil and Water Conservation District reports. We are negotiating with Invenergy's representatives now, but we're at a pause in those negotiations simply because we're waiting for more engineering data to be able to go forward with more detailed specifications. As in all agreements, the devil's in the details, so we have to have good detailed road agreement documentation. The road commissioners have employed their own separate consulting engineering firm, Luciacchi and Brown Incorporated from Bloomington, who are advising them on evaluating the road proposal and the engineering data regarding traffic count, weight loads, that sort of thing. So they'll have an independent engineering source of advice as well as depending on the county engineer's office. So we're midstream in our negotiations, and my desire to testify tonight, I have to do it tonight, is simply to let you know that that's ongoing and feel our negotiations are proceeding in good faith. But the duration of your zoning hearings probably has caused some delay in Invenergy being able to produce more engineering data for us. But the road commissioners are not taking any position on the merits of the zoning. It's not their job. They're independently elected officials who respect the role of the county board itself to make, as a legislature, to make that decision. We just want to make sure that if this project is approved, we can assure the residents of those townships that we're going to have good roads as an outcome. So I just want to make this kind of status report to you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. ZBA, do we have any questions of Mr. Lenz? All right. Local government, school districts, council on either side. Mr. Lugan, question.
You said that this length of this hearing has caused delay for Invenergy getting the engineering data. Could you explain that for me, Mr. Lenz?
Normally, at about this stage, or even before this stage, we'd have a little more engineering data than has been provided so far. It's not a big problem. It's not a concern. We are mindful of the fact that if and when this project is, if the project is approved by the county, that we have a limited period of time after that date of approval in order to produce and win a good road use agreement. And we just want to make sure we're well within that time period. So we're keeping some pressure on Invenergy to produce that information for us. We harass them occasionally, asking for more data. That's all I meant.
Do you represent the non-township road commissioner?
I represent all of the 9 road commissioners in this project, yes.
Okay. And Is Mononk in this project?
I'm sorry?
Mononk?
No, Mononk is not in this project. I'm the attorney for the road commissioners. I think an associate from your office has called me and talked about that a couple of months ago. I represent the Mononk wind farm project, which is a Mesa project, not an energy project, has part of its footprint in Woodford County, and as you know, part of its footprint in Livingston County, called Mononk, because that's where most of the turbines are. And we have a dispute with that developer because they're not living up to their part of the contract, and that's a dispute that's not in court, but it's an ongoing negotiation.
But it's an ongoing dispute between your road commissioner and the wind energy company, correct?
Some, not all companies are created equal, just like not all of us are created equal as lawyers. And we have found that the Mesa has been very difficult to deal with. I can tell you this, they were very difficult to deal with in the negotiating phase as well, and during the construction phase. So what we're going through now is not new to us as far as that project is concerned.
So they weren't always honest early on in the process with you?
I'm not sure I heard what you said.
They weren't always upfront in the project with you?
Well, it was sort of a take it or leave it project. And the negotiation got some give and take, as you know, from your experience. With Mesa, it was pretty much, they kind of laid down the run and said, here it is, take it or leave it. And at one point, we walked out of meetings and said, well, if you're going to be that way, you're not going to build a project in this footprint. Then they came back to us later when they found out that we really meant it.
Nothing further.
Members of the audience, any questions for Mr. Lenz?
Keith Bittner.
Sorry, what's your name?
Keith Bittner. I live 5326 North 2300 East Road, Woodbury. Now, over the course of this past summer, there's a lot of neighbors, noticed a lot of different trucks in the area. And obviously, we wanted to know what was going on. Now, I had stopped and visited with a couple of guys, and they were doing road surveys, and that was last summer. Now, you're saying that Energy does not have that data compiled?
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, there was a change in the transportation plan in terms of the road arrangement, so that some of the testing, as I understand it, was done by two different engineering companies that were contracted with Energy. One is ARA, the other is HLN. They do different things. They were doing borings to test the depth of the gravel base, to know what the strength of the road is, therefore what kind of damage certain weight loads would do to it, and a variety of other things. Then, with a change in the transportation plan, they had to go back and do some work. They couldn't do that during the winter. So they're advised that they'll have those reports supplemented and available to us before the end of April.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else in the audience with questions? Nobody else? County staff, county council, DBA again? All right, thank you, Mr. Lenz.
Thank you very much.
Next on the list, I have Danny Betts. Danny Betts?
Yeah, he's the one you should pick off the list, Mr. Chairman.
Cindy Kaiser. Cindy Kaiser. Ms. Kaiser, you do solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the testimony you shall give in this case now and hearing will be the truth and nothing but the truth, or that you suffer the pains and penalties of perjury. Thank you. Please state your name and address for our court reporter, and then you can go ahead and begin.
Cindy Kaiser, 11848 North, and East Road, Florida.
Larry and I have lived in our home in Pleasant Ridge over 40 years. Larry was born there, we were married there, and our 3 children were raised there. We bought the home from Larry's parents, who raised 8 children in the same house. Between the 2 families, Kaisners have lived in the home for 86 years.
And now, Invenergy wants to surround our home with wind turbines and destroy that family legacy. 6 turbines are sited within 1 1/2 mile radius of the foundation of our house. One is only about 1/3 mile away. Invenergy calls this the Pleasant Ridge Wind Energy Project, a designation I resent because they have no right to usurp the name of our beautiful township and use it for an industrial wind project. If such a thing would happen, it would not be Pleasant Ridge ever again. We love the sunsets, the singing of the birds, and the wildlife that are a wonderful part of country living. A county board member said he drives past a wind farm on his way to work every day, and the turbines only work about 30% of the time. He asked the county administrator why they don't run all the time and was told, because we have too much power. So, why do they need another wind farm? What is the point? The Constitution of this great nation gives every citizen the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In such a democracy that we are blessed and privileged to live in, no one should be able to take those rights away from another. Health and happiness cannot be bought with money. Those blessings are endowed by a faithful Creator. To jeopardize the health or well-being of another with the intrusion of giant wind turbines with glaring lights, relentless infrasound and vibrations, and sleep deprivation is a gross injustice and a violation of our inalienable rights. The mountains of evidence already presented over months of meetings and hearings prove that this is truly a human health hazard. When we fought the incinerator battle and won, thank God, an article in the Blade from the opposition stated that a few may suffer while many will benefit. That, in reverse, is the situation with the wind turbines. Many may suffer, that a few will benefit. How low have we sunk that such an attitude could possibly prevail? Money, unjustly gained, is a fleeting thing with no lasting benefit. We are accountable for decisions we make that can adversely affect another's life or property. When the wind company was enticing people to sign for a turbine some time ago, we decided it would be wrong to get paid for a turbine on our land when all of our neighbors who owned a house but not the land around it would lose the value of their home. With the truth that has been so completely exposed about the negative consequences of these giant wind turbines, there is no amount of money that is worth bringing harm to friends or neighbors when we would benefit. The word says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and then lose his own soul? Thank you.
Any questions? Mrs. Geisner? All right. Local government, school districts, council on either side. All right. Any members of the audience with questions? Anybody out there? Any questions? County council, county staff, DBA again. We're good? All right. Thank you. Next on the list, Ed Maubach. Ed Maubach. Maubach, do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case now in hearing you shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, please state your name and address for a court recorder and then go ahead and begin.
Ed Maubach, Forest, Illinois, 520 North Pearl Street. 2nd, I attended the Regional Planning Commission meeting in Pontiac. The committee voted unanimously that what was provided by the Pleasant Ridge Wind Energy Project is incompatible with the county's comprehensive plan. There was a lot of discussion as to the reasons, and a few items were discussed. Number one, natural resources and wildlife. Concerns were voiced about natural resources and wildlife, including migrating birds, bats, and the effects of noise and flicker on fish. Over 50,000 acres of prime farmland will be in the footprint and could potentially be affected. Health and safety. The health and safety of the county residents was a big concern discussed. The discussion included noise, shadow flicker, and a disregard for people who live in a footprint who are not owners of farm ground. It was pointed out that in Wisconsin, 20 hours of flicker was allowed, and this project is allowing 30 hours. A comment was made that curiously, the setbacks from cemeteries is bigger than the setback from primary residences. Property values, the impact on property values was also discussed. And there were no studies done on how many buyers are walking away from the turbines. Detriment to public welfare. A comment was made that Invenergy believes the impacts on the residential sector is going to be minimal. One board member commented that a lot of people will be impacted. It takes options away from people who are not participating. Good neighbor agreement basically says, we know we are putting you in a bad spot and we are giving you a little money for it. The homeowner does not have options to get away from the turbines. This project involves a lot of people who do not have a voice. The conclusion is that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And I thank God for that lady that spoke up that night. Consistency with municipal plans. Mayor Chafford indicated that the RPC committee that Invenergy has not even talked to Chatsworth. This was the mayor about their municipal plan, and therefore he is unsure about the rest of the information they provided. Have they talked to other municipalities? Applications need to be consistent with all municipal plans. I would like to tie back this discussion and overall discussion of the project directly to the county's comprehensive plan. In the Livingston County Comprehensive Plan under section 4.6, checklist analysis for proposed land use changes. It indicates there is a point analysis that should be used by the Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Commission, and County Board to ensure consistent evaluation of land uses changes and an ongoing review of the basic criteria in the plan. There are nine points out of 16 in this checklist are obviously affected in a negative way. Does the land use change fulfill a significant need in the area? This application does not fulfill any significant need for the area, as most likely none of the electricity produced by the wind turbines will be used in our county. Will the land use change beneficial to the general welfare, safety, and health of the residents of the immediate area and the general population of the county? As the RPC discussed and as many witnesses have testified, the turbines have the potential to have a huge negative impact on the general welfare, safety, and health of residents. Will the land use change constitute precedent of an incompatible use and be determinant to adjacent property? Studies showing decreased property values prove that this to be detrimental to adjacent properties. Also, the effects of damage of crushed tile occurring during construction may not be revealed for months. The effects will impact not only the landowner on whose farm the tile is crushed, but also adjacent landowners who may not participate. Will the land use change adversely influence living conditions due to the creation of new pollution source? Studies and real-life testimony show that noise pollution, both audible and inaudible infrasound, is a very real possibility for people living inside the footprint. The noise can cause deep sleep deprivation, which in turn can cause serious adverse health effects. Will the land use change adversely influence adjacent property values? Common sense says that most people, if given the choice, would choose not to live amongst the turbines. Also, studies on local property values and neighboring wind farms prove the values are adversely affected. Will the land use change contribute to unsafe traffic patterns or undue congestion? Especially during the construction phase, there is a serious concern about the traffic near the junior high and Forest, but they forgot to put grade school in there, as the proposed batch plant is across the street. Will the land use change adversely affect the valuable nature resource of the county? Besides taking prime farmland out of production, there could be impacts to all the farmland and the footprint due to restrictions on aerial spraying, damage tiles, and etc. Will the land use change create additional environmental problems due to soil, vegetation, slope, or floodplain? Damaged tile and the resulting flood issues could cause problems with soil, vegetation, and floodplain. Is the land use change consistent with municipal plans? The Mayor Chaffers has indicated there has been no discussion with this city regarding their plans. I would also like to tie my testimony back to the ZBA's standards of special use. Based on the incompatibility of the comprehensive plan, there are several violations. The application is not consistent in all respects to Livingston County Comprehensive Plan and Livingston County zoning ordinance. There are many concerns I have discussed in which this project will potentially be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, and general welfare. This project has great potential of being injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the uses already permitted, or substantially reduce the value of neighboring properties. It also has the potential to impede orderly growth, development, and improvement of surrounding properties for those uses permitted in the zoning district. Future development is restricted due to specific limits and setbacks, noise, and potential shadow flicker, also due to the decreased property values and growth of the development. Finally, this special use is not consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of these regulations. It was potentially injure the appropriate use of neighboring property substantially and permanently. It would be detrimental to the public convenience and welfare. And this, the growth and development and improving. I just got one more thing to say, and that's about the setback in Forest. A mile and a half is probably not, if this goes through, it's probably not that bad. But a half a mile, and with that half a mile, there is no way that town can grow. And like I say, there's a junior high on the north end, and on the west end, there's a little grade school. And they're gonna have to put up with these poor kids. That's all I got.
Do you have any questions at this point? All right, local government, school districts, council on either side. All right, members of the audience, any questions from the audience? Anybody out there with questions? Nope, county council, county staff. ZBA again. Thank you, Mr. Malak. Cheryl Hoffman. Cheryl Hoffman, are you available to speak? Not ready? All right. Next, I have Laura Kerber.
She's on the list for Wednesday.
All right. Steve Knauer. Steve Knauer. Barb Cook. Barb Cook. Okay.
Oh.
Carol Knapp. All right. Harvey Zier, Jr.
He's going to be on my witness list for Wednesday night as well.
Our Wednesday witness list is really growing. George Bush, B-U-S-C-H. Brent Johnston.
He's
Brent.
Wednesday.
Let's go home.
Terry Cole. Carolyn Gerwin. John A. Schlegel.
Oh, God. I can introduce myself.
All right. Let's skip over you. Warren Gillette. Warren Gillette. Adam Followell. Glenn Schropp. All right, just so everybody knows, that's everybody on the list that's supposed to testify. So everybody that said they're going to go Wednesday, factor that into your presentation because Wednesday and then I guess we'll continue on the 25th. I'm going to remind everybody the 25th is the last night to sign up. So you're going to need to make sure you sign up.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Mark Aberly, did he already testify and I missed it, or?
Yes.
He did, I apologize. Thank you.
Okay. I guess with that, remind everybody, we're meeting again Wednesday here, 6:30. Chuck, do we know anything about the 25th? Here or there? Okay. We don't know the venue yet on the 25th. Need to make sure you're signed up. Certainly, if you think you're going to testify, sign up on the 18th, but if not, sign up on the 25th. We're going to address the RAND situation with their report on Wednesday. That'll be the first thing. With that, I need a motion to recess. Been some motions. Can I get a second? All right.